I uncovered as much information as I possibly can on the charming and mysterious man, Dr. Harishva Pandey, and he prefers to be called Harry, even though he's now the 6th of Team Rainbow. Harry has had his hands on literally every single operator on Team Rainbow, with completing a psychological evaluation on every operator, recruiting new ops, or building massive stadiums to train in. It's safe to say that Harry is currently the most important person of Rainbow Six Siege, but that wasn't always the case. In this video, I'm going to do my absolute best to find everything we know about Dr. Harry Pandey, including some parts about his life before joining Team Rainbow. If you're new here, I'm Sir Jeppy, and I love the lore of Rainbow Six Siege. If you also love these lore stories, then make sure to subscribe, as I'm always putting out new operator lore videos. I also have an entire lore playlist if you want to check that out, link for that in the description below. Leave a like and let's get right into the complete story of the 6th of Team Rainbow, Harry. So again, Harry's real name is Harishva Pandey, and he was born in India. Now there's actually so much about his childhood that we simply just have no information about, but we do have a clue that Harry most likely lived a somewhat ordinary childhood with no extravagant or super rich parents. We can see this in the psychological evaluation for Callie, where Harry says this: "Despite our shared heritage, Specialist Gemini Calamoan Callie Shaw's experiences are as alien to me as if she had come from the dark side of the moon. Contrary to what the romantics of this world would have you believe, money does create a boundary that can't be crossed by any other means." End quote. Now, I remember this when I made the Callie opera lore video and figured that maybe Harry didn't have parents anywhere close to Callie's wealth. So moving on, we don't get any real concrete information on what Harry's childhood was like. Now, I tried reading as many operator lores as I realistically can for this video to see all the things he says about his personal life while evaluating all the operators. Now, he did mention in IQ's lore that he remembers the same exhaustive rush from completing his first marathon. So we do know that he has always been relatively physically fit, and he even confirms this in Blitz's lore as well. Additionally, we do know that Harry found a woman and fell in love with her. I'm unsure of where this happened or any details around how they met or really anything like that, but they did end up getting married and having at least one kid together as well. Now, it's a super short sentence in Blitz's lore, and it's really easy to overlook if you are reading quickly, and you might have missed it. Okay, cool. So he has a wife and a son as well. And based off of his interactions with all the operators on Team Rainbow, I can safely assume that he is a very understanding and probably a great father. That makes me feel pretty good. All right, so let's move on to when Harry joins Team Rainbow and everything he's done since then. In 2015, when the original 6, Aurelia or not, reactivated Team Rainbow due to the attacks of the White Masks, especially on Bartlett University. Now, Aurelia hired Harry as her psychological and military cultural advisor. Now, for those of you that don't know, Aurelia was the 6th for a long time before Harry officially took over leading Team Rainbow in early 2019. A lot of people actually think that Harry was the 6th for the whole time, including me. You'll notice in my first few opera lore videos I ever made, I was unaware that Aurelia even existed. So my apologies for anyone who watched like the Thatcher, the Ash, the Doc, and maybe a few other opera lore videos. Like, I had no idea she existed, and I thought Harry was the 6th the entire time. My apologies. There is something I do want to talk about though, and I think it's pretty safe to assume that Harry practiced as a psychiatrist somewhere before joining Team Rainbow. Now, I can't imagine Aurelia would hire a psychiatrist with absolutely no experience, so I thought that he probably worked somewhere else as one too. I can only imagine. Well, Harry was pretty much a background character for the first like 3.5 years of the reactivation of Team Rainbow. All he really did was the psychological profiles, which were very, very brief. To my understanding, he didn't make the fully fleshed out psychological reports until he became the 6th in 2019 and wanted a much more in-depth look on each and every operator's past and psyche. That's why you'll see a lot of inconsistencies in ops lores, where there will be new operators interacting with old ones in ways where it seems like it really shouldn't be chronologically correct. So most of Harry's work for the first few years of him joining Team Rainbow was to aid in the screening and the selection of candidates, ensuring they meshed well with the team as a whole. Now, all of that changed when the original 6 of Team Rainbow, Aurelia or not, accepted the monumental position of the United States Secretary of State. So that left Team Rainbow without a 6. Aurelia strongly recommended Harry to advance and take the position of 6 for Rainbow. He knew all the operators and was very familiar with how everything worked. So in early 2019, he accepted. I have an initial quote from Harry that tells us what he's thinking as he advances his career. Quote, "You've seen me before, perhaps in the shadows, observing, watching, recording my thoughts. While 6 would take the center stage, I was never far behind, whispering my advice as I calculated and planned Rainbow's every step. Now, as I assume the mantle of 6, I can finally set in motion the strategies I have carefully engineered. I know it will take years to unfold, but no matter, I am playing the long game. I will change Rainbow forever. Also, please just call me Harry." End quote. So we can see how Harry has always been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the day he assumes the role of 6. But it also looks like he might be intimidated by the massive success of Aurelia or not, and wondering if he'll be as good as her. We can see this start to play out with one of my favorite cinematics ever, the hammer and the scalpel. It starts off with Doki and Thatcher arguing over the correct way to complete a training exercise when the time was ticking down. Doki gets pissed off at Thatcher and turns to Harry, the now 6 of Team Rainbow, for some much needed advice.
No like that.
He has no respect for anything. If it doesn't fire a bullet or explode, he dismisses it. Look at this.
Oh,
no
careful.
lag.
My wife has a strict policy about knives in the house, and I have a strict policy about not pissing off my wife.
I know Thatcher is supposed to be the best, but he's a hammer, and I'm just a nail to him.
Sit. Sit, it won't bite. You're angry. That's good. Anger can be a powerful tool, but we're terrified of losing control, of embracing it. And that's why I envy Mike.
Now we see a flashback of Thatcher saving and getting revenge for his brother that helps signify Harry's points exactly about what he is saying about Mike Baker or Thatcher.
This isn't about how Thatcher's been treating you, is it?
I'm just tired of trying to prove myself.
It'll take time for some, but you are nobody's nail. You're much too sharp for that. Rainbow needs people who will challenge the future of the unit. And those who will remind it of its roots. It needs people who can be the scalpel and the hammer.
Thank you, 6.
6. She left some very large shoes to fill, didn't she? I'll tell you what. For now, please call me Harry.
Once again, at the very end, we see him tell Doki that he'd like to be referred to as Harry instead of 6. But once Harry took over, he wanted to revamp his tiny psychological profiles he made for every operator for much more in-depth psychological evaluations that we all know and love today. A big part on the lore stories I gathered while doing research for these videos. Not only did he revamp every evaluation, but he had some massive plans for Team Rainbow as a whole. Firstly, he assigned Mira as the research and development director for Rainbow, and she humbly accepted the position. Mira is absolutely essential on making or redesigning the gadgets of Rainbow to the best of her abilities. But it doesn't stop there. He had even bigger visions for the future of the organization. But in order to bring his ideas to life, he needed to find a place where every operator can get together and practice. But not just to practice, he wanted a place where every operator can live at as well. He expertly planned that if all the operators had the option to live together and interact on a daily basis, everything from the training and execution of operations would go that much more smoothly as well. They would become better teammates as a result of it too. So Harry conceived the program.
Obviously, when assessing any potential future threats, there is that which we know and that which we don't. But it is always that which we don't know that poses the greatest danger. Imagine the past and the present transmuted together into the best possible future. We will start with the stadium. We will take what was old and breathe new life into it. The echoes of heroes' past will become cheers of champions' future. They will come from every part of the globe so that they may face their greatest adversaries, each other, and ultimately, themselves. Here in this crucible, we will come together so that we may be stronger apart. Welcome to the program.
Now, the program will be developed to have facilities across the entire world where the operators can visit or live together. Harry wanted to decentralize Hereford Base as the epicenter of Rainbow and found a new location at an abandoned stadium in Ellis, Greece. And yes, this is the same stadium we see in the Tournament of Champions cinematics we are all familiar with. Now, this old abandoned stadium, mainly used for Commonwealth games in like the 1970s, needed major renovation. Harry sought to utilize the resources he has to create a literal state-of-the-art facility. He tasked Mira and Rainbow's engineering team with renovating the entire facility and checked all the boxes. After its completion, the stadium would have a gym, medical bay, firing range, dormitories, a cafeteria, lounges, a freaking movie theater, and would house the research and development lab that Mira is now the leader of. It is a masterpiece and would definitely be a super cool place to call home. Now, after the stadium was constructed and the program initialized, there was one more thing Harry made sure he had to do. With the ever-growing threat of terror in the world, there would be a couple non-military organizations looking to help stop it. One of them being NIGHTHAVEN. Now, with NIGHTHAVEN's growing popularity and the massive potential they have funded by Gemini Shaw or Callie, he knew he needed to act fast. Either form an alliance with NIGHTHAVEN or they'll eventually become competitors or even more powerful than Team Rainbow. So, after learning that Callie, Womai, and the rest of NIGHTHAVEN saved a super tanker called the Argus from pirates, he asked them to become affiliated with Team Rainbow. And, well, they accepted. Ash, one of Harry's closest operators and advisors, was unaware of the real reason why Harry recruited NIGHTHAVEN. He wanted to keep a close eye on them and save them for himself. Okay, so possibly the most monumental event would be happening in January of 2020, was brought to life by Harry making it the first annual Tournament of Champions at the newly constructed stadium. The state-of-the-art facility would be able to hold thousands of fans eager to learn what Team Rainbow was all about. Now, I can only imagine that having such an event like this would bring in tons of press and funds that would help improve Team Rainbow because of it. It would be a tournament where the best teams of Rainbow would compete with the two best teams being featured in the grand finals, and it was a massive success. The stadium was packed, and I'm sure there were people watching from all across the world. So I guess that means that maybe millions of people saw Pulse not clutch to 1v5 for simping on Habana. Well, after the Tournament of Champions, there will be some new operators added to the roster due to the direct affiliation with NIGHTHAVEN, those operators being Ace and Malusi. Now, even though they are still members of NIGHTHAVEN, at the end of the day, they still needed a psychological evaluation completed by Harry for him to approve them training and going on operations with other Rainbow members. Later in 2020, Harry would add another massive improvement to Team Rainbow by establishing the Rainbow Operations Staff, or the ROS for short. Now, the ROS would closely work with Harry and learn ways on how to properly train all the operators on Team Rainbow on a grander scale, headed by superior instructors. Now, there's only one person who can lead such a program, and Harry knew that. He reached out to an old Sam Fisher and asked him if he'd be interested in getting back to his roots and helping teach once again. And thank God he did. Sam Fisher agreed to join Rainbow while leading the ROS unit and immediately got to work training operators. Under his new call sign of Zero, he would very frequently beat the other operators in literal 1v5 scenarios. And to be honest, it looks like that he hardly even broke a sweat, but this was essential as the operators would see what experience and dedication would do even if someone is, well, much older than you and in a 1v5 scenario. At above 60 years old, Harry picked the best guy for the job, and Sam would quickly become Harry's right-hand man. Now, on October 31st, 2020, Harry would travel to Bangkok to participate in the Loy Krathong Festival. While he was there, Specialist Elena Averas, or better known to us as Mira, would call him and tell Harry that Callie would be recruiting yet another operator into NIGHTHAVEN. Harry would find out that it's none other than Aruni, which has honestly been a great addition added to the team. It would actually work out perfectly because Thermite already had a history with Aruni, so I'm sure Harry would be relieved that she'd feel welcome. Moving on, it was time to start picking teams for the second annual Tournament of Champions. This time though, Harry would want to focus on operators that don't necessarily get along the best on the same team, like having Ash with Callie. He thought that if putting operators together that don't necessarily have the best history, that maybe they would get over the differences and begin to tolerate each other. Well, to be honest, I don't know how well that worked out. As we see with round 9 overtime, Team Ash versus Team Mira made it all the way to the finals. Harry and Zero sat up in the observation booth getting ready for the final round.
Match in overtime.
Team Mira ties the game. Are you a betting man, Harry?
Do you assume I favor one side over the other? You know me better than that, Sam. Besides, I left my wallet at home. Attackers prepare.
With some very questionable choices made by Callie during the round that led to Ash getting part of her ear shot off, Harry and Zero immediately noticed that there's a huge problem going on with the operators.
Something tells me that didn't come out of the playbook.
Not in our playbook, anyway. Something tells me this fight ain't over.
With Callie and Ash fighting and the shifting divide in Team Rainbow because of it, I can imagine that Harry is extremely nervous to pick up the broken pieces and fix what he's worked so hard to build. We'll see more about this, I'm sure, later down the road. When more information comes out on the future of Harry's lore, you can rest assured that I will do my absolute best to break it down and give you the best video I possibly can for your guys' enjoyment. I'm Sir Jeppy, and if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to notifications if you're new. Now, with all that being said, Jeppy out!